All right, let's dive in. Today, we're cracking open a real-life medical mystery. It's a story about a major clinical trial that hits a dead end, a case that goes cold for over a decade. And the truth? It only gets uncovered when a new kind of detective shows up on the scene. But this detective doesn't use a magnifying glass. No, it uses a powerful statistical tool.
This one little line, this is the key that unlocked the entire mystery. You see, it comes from a paper published way later, in 2010, by researchers who decided to take a second look at a study everyone else had completely written off. And what they found wasn't just some minor detail, it was literally a matter of life and death, hidden in plain sight, right inside the original data.
So let's rewind the clock. The story really begins back in 1998 with this big, expensive medical trial that, for all intents and purposes, was a complete failure, a total dead end. You could call it a scientific cold case.
Okay, so let's set the scene. What was this study even about, and why on earth did the case go cold for more than 10 years?
So, this was a huge deal at the time, published in a major medical journal. The goal was to find a way to help HIV patients who were suffering from this awful, painful nerve damage. They tested two different treatments, acupuncture on one hand and a common antidepressant called amitriptyline on the other. And this was a massive NIH-funded trial with 250 patients across the country. But after all that time, all that money, the conclusion was a total dud. Nothing worked. The official word was that neither treatment was any better than a sugar pill.
And that was that. For over a decade, that was the final word. Case closed, file it away. But what if the original investigators were just looking for the wrong clues? What if they were using the wrong tool for the job and the real answer was right there in front of them the whole time?
To really get how this case was finally cracked, we need to meet our statistical detective. It's a method called ANCOVA, and it is specifically designed to find the truth when things aren't nearly as simple as they look on the surface.
So what the heck is ANCOVA? Well, think of it as a superpowered way to compare different groups. Its special ability, its superpower, is that it can mathematically account for and basically remove the influence of other factors that might be messing up the results. That way you can see what's really going on.
Right, so the whole point of this, the entire reason it exists, is to create a totally fair comparison. Its job is to level the playing field, so you can isolate the true effect of what you're studying without all that other background noise getting in the way.
Let me break this down with a really simple analogy. Imagine a race. You've got two runners, runner A and runner B. Runner A crosses the finish line first. Pretty straightforward, right? Runner A is faster. But what if I told you runner A had a huge tailwind pushing her from behind the whole time? That tailwind is what we call a covariate. It's an outside variable that's affecting the outcome. ANCOVA is the tool that lets us mathematically erase the effect of that wind so we can finally see who the truly better athlete is.
You see, a simpler analysis, something called ANOVA, would just look at the raw times and say, yep, runner A won. End of story. But ANCOVA, our statistical detective, it adjusts for that tailwind. And in doing so, it might actually reveal that runner B is the superior athlete. It gives us a way more accurate picture. So the key here is that ANCOVA can find truths that simpler methods would completely miss.
So, fast forward a decade, this new team of researchers gets their hands on the raw data from that failed 1998 study. They had a hunch that maybe something more complex was going on. So they decided to point this more powerful tool, ANCOVA, at the data, looking for something the original analysis couldn't even detect, an interaction effect.
Now, interaction effect sounds super technical, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It's when 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It's when you combine two things and the result you get is totally different from what you'd expect by just adding them up. Maybe 1 + 1 equals 0, or maybe it equals -5.
Here's the easiest way to picture it for our mystery. Let's say acupuncture, all by itself, is a good thing, a smiley face. And maybe the drug, amitriptyline, by itself, is also a good thing, another smiley face. An interaction effect means that when you put them together, the result could suddenly become a bad thing, a frowny face. This is the exact kind of hidden clue the original study was blind to.
So here's the big question, right? The moment of truth. What did these statistical detectives actually find when they finally pointed their powerful flashlight into this dark, decade-old cold case?
Well, what they found was nothing short of shocking. The original conclusion wasn't just incomplete, it was dangerously, tragically wrong.
The first big red flag popped up when they looked at who was dropping out of the study. This is a huge clue about whether a treatment is actually helping people. Now look at this chart. That first bar shows that for patients getting only acupuncture, just 13% dropped out. But now look at the other two bars. For people on the drug alone or the placebo, the dropout rate was over 40%. This was a massive signal that acupuncture was having a real positive effect that patients could feel.
But this is where the story takes a really dark and unexpected turn. The researchers drilled down and looked at the most severe outcome possible, the mortality rate, specifically for the patients who were already in poor health when the study started. For those getting just acupuncture, the death rate was around 11%. But for patients getting both acupuncture and the drug, just look at that second bar. The rate didn't just go up a little, it skyrocketed.
Yeah, let that number sink in for a second. 52.9%. More than half of the sickest patients who were given both treatments died within 2 years. Remember, that's compared to just 11% for those who got acupuncture by itself. This wasn't a subtle difference. This was a catastrophe hidden in the data.
So there it was, the hidden truth that ANCOVA finally uncovered. That deadly interaction effect. The two treatments, when put together, weren't just useless like the original study said. For the most vulnerable people in the trial, the combination was actively, terrifyingly dangerous.
So what's the big lesson here? What do we take away from this whole medical detective story? Well, it really all comes down to one crucial idea about how we search for the truth.
It really boils down to this: a study's conclusion, that big headline you read, is only as good as the tools that were used to find it. This story proves that even a so-called failed study can be sitting on life-saving information, and it shows why powerful tools like ANCOVA are so important for finding those hidden connections, both the good ones and the really, really bad ones. Because in medicine, knowing that two good things can combine to make a terrible thing isn't just theory, it's absolutely critical. Choosing the right tool can literally be the difference between a misleading conclusion and a life-changing discovery.
And that leaves us with this one huge, lingering question, doesn't it? This one case was re-examined, and the discovery was profound. So it just makes you wonder, how many other incredible breakthroughs, how many other hidden dangers are just sitting there right now, buried in the data of old, forgotten, failed studies, just waiting for the right statistical detective to come along and finally crack the case?